Welcome to the city, Mastermind City. Hi, I'm Faye Chappell.
And I'm Stacy Maynard. Join us for a vibrant, inspiring, and uplifting talk as we focus on how you can make a lasting impact on a global scale. Because the truth is, we're here because we want you to win.
So are you ready to surround yourself with success? Because you're in the right place. Welcome to the city. You know, we should start this earlier because we have these whole conversations before we even get online. Sometimes I think they're a little more interesting than what we're talking about.
I'm like, wait, we have to stop.
Yeah.
So where are you now? I feel like we need to play the Where's Waldo. So where's Faye?
Yeah, I'm at home. I had to take my son to Shinny this morning. You know, speaking of, it was interesting because I was somebody had not texted me, they DM'd me on Instagram, just, you know, old neighbors or people, friends and stuff. And I just said, well, I'm at Shinny because they're like, oh, you're on, like, you know, when people check to see if you're online, right? They see the little green dot on Instagram. And no.
Okay.
And so I was talking, I'm like, a Shinny. And what was interesting about it is she said, oh, you like that early? Because we left at 6:30. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a little tired. But she's like, well, you just do way too much for your kids. And you know what? Here's my little pet peeve. For
wow. You know what? Not okay.
It's none of your business, right? It's none of your business how I choose to raise my kids or what I do. And I was a little turned off by it because, you know, I have 3 really great kids and they're well adjusted and they're not spoiled or anything. But I will, you know, if he wants to go play Shinny at 6:30, I will drive him because I'm up anyway. Mm-hmm. But I just thought, you know, just because it's not your parenting style, please don't tell me how to parent.
Well, unless you've walked a mile in your shoes, lived your life, know the dynamics of a family, I don't know. It's kind of like when someone posts, like I always get a kick out of someone posting something on a Facebook group, like a mummy's chat or a community board or whatever it happens to be. And they kind of say, oh, my whatever age child is doing this. And then you get like 1,000 people giving 1,000 different pieces of advice. I'm like, how can you even say you're doing too much? You're doing too little. You're not doing this. You are doing this. It's none of your business. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, if I ask for advice, cool. Right?
Yeah. What do you think?
I'm not asking for advice. I'm not asking your opinion. I'm not asking anything. I was just making a statement. I drove him to Shinny.
And then you're tired.
Right? Like that's what it was. And it was not a big deal. And there wasn't, you know, I happily take my kids wherever they need to go. I have no issue with it. Never have. I am the parent that if you were stuck as a teenager at 2 a.m. and you couldn't get a taxi at the time because there was no Uber, and you couldn't get a ride, I'm the parent, even though I'm the one who probably had the little baby and everything else, I'm the parent who went and picked you up.
Yeah.
I'm that parent because I never wanted my kids to have to worry about their situations. And if that's spoiling them, then I did.
Well, I don't think it is because I've said the same thing. Like, to me, safety first. So if you're anywhere in the world, not world, but if you're anywhere and you're uncomfortable or you want to leave, throw me under the bus. Tell me that I'm the worst. Tell your friends I'm the worst mother ever. I don't care. I will be there at whatever hour to pick you up. And it's because it happened to me.
Right.
So when I was a teenager, I was probably like 20, still living at home. And I ended up in a situation where I was at a friend's house and the mom, unfortunately, didn't know I was staying over, but that's fine. I was just sleeping on the couch. And she, long story, but she was drunk, unfortunately, and started to yell at me that I was there for the wrong reasons and that I was doing something for her son and I was a bad influence. So at 4:00 a.m, she kicked me out.
Nice.
She's like, get out of my house. Now, years later, she apologized for that. So, I mean, it's all good. So I had to call my dad at 4:00 a.m. to say, hey, sup?
Yeah.
And he willingly, probably not happily, but he drove, no questions asked. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Wait for me. No problem. Drove me home, like not even a hesitation. Yeah. So I remember that. And I thank goodness, because it wasn't because I was in a bad situation. It wasn't because I was, you're driving your kids all over the place. It's that, you know what, you need to know that you can rely on your parents.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And that's, yeah. I mean, I grew up, not, my parents worked all the time. They weren't even home most of the time. They worked because they had no choice. I can remember the buses at the time stopped at 12 o'clock. You couldn't get a taxi. And even if you wanted to, couldn't afford it back then when I was, a teenager.
Right.
And I can remember, like 2, 3 in the morning when I'd miss, and your ride, your friend got drunk or whatever. And I can remember walking for 2, 3 hours to get home. Yeah. In the middle of the night, not like it. And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, just about anything could have happened to me. Like there were so many times that I didn't have a ride somewhere. And I don't want my kids to have that, grow up like that and have that fear and everything. So, I mean, everyone's different. And I'm never going to tell anyone how to parent. That is none of my business. So I parent, as I always say, I raised good kids. I did something right. I'm going to stick with my plan. Right?
Well, the bottom line is that you don't give people advice to say you don't do enough for your kids.
No.
So they shouldn't say you do too much for your kids. You just don't know. And like, I'm not one to give parenting advice. I don't live your life. Right. I don't know what it's like to walk a mile in your shoes. So you do you, as much as I hate that term. You do you, I'll do me. I'll do what I think is right. I'll do what I think works. And,
But it's interesting because I think the whole concept, like, not the concept, but the whole play on social media, right? Mm-hmm. People seem to think, people you haven't talked to in like 100 years, people that you don't know, people seem to think that they can just say anything they want because they're literally behind this wall that they don't have to worry about, right? They're not actually in front of your face. Because if they're in front of your face, sometimes people would never post or say what they do, right? If they were sitting there in front of your face, they wouldn't do it. But they somehow feel like empowered or something. They can say anything they want. And that is so not cool.
Well, I think I remember telling you that, so I remember posting that my son was, he was trying to do speed skating and basketball at the same time. He then decided that he wanted to focus his time on basketball, so was quitting speed skating. I was fully supportive of that. Right. So I posted on Facebook that he was no longer doing speed skating and that he was going to be focusing his efforts on basketball. And a person I went to high school with, I haven't talked to in a million years. I've been in high school in a very long time.
Yeah.
And he posted how much, he goes, I actually think, I need to say this, you're making a big mistake. I'm sorry, who are you? I don't even remember you.
You don't know my kid. You haven't talked to you in 25 years.
Or more, like whatever, like a million years. And he's telling me that I'm making a mistake as a parent when you don't know my kid. You don't know anything about me. And I don't even remember you. Like, who are you?
So if you see this online and somebody, if they say, what do you think? Or what's your advice? Then go ahead.
Yeah, that's
different. If
different.
somebody is just making a statement, it really isn't your business. If you disagree with them, if you agree with them, that's cool. Because some people go, yay, whatever. If you disagree or think it's wrong, then just like keep it to yourself because they're not asking your opinion. If they were worried about a decision, they would ask, right? And that's the beauty of social media. You can ask, you can put up a poll. What do you think? Right?
But you know what else you can do on social media? Not respond.
Exactly.
You can actually read a post and not comment on it. It's possible. Right. Trust me, you can scroll past. You can.
And that's like sometimes I do some work for, as you guys know, a restaurant. And like, if there's a negative review that I can tell is bullshit, right? I can tell how it's written. I just ignore it. I just don't even bother responding because all they're looking for, and those of you guys who do this, shame on you, is looking for you to send them a free gift certificate, right?
Let me make it up to you.
It's interesting. Social media is just an interesting place that, as I said, people just think they're having can have any conversations with you. Whatever. I'm very rarely, right? Like live. I'm very rarely on a social media platform live. Other than that, I'm not really looking for conversation if anyone's looking to start a conversation with me, direct
But
message.
that's the interesting thing, right? Like social media has given people the ability to have a voice, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's given people the opportunity to have a voice when maybe their opinion wasn't asked. So
Yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah, especially in some of the private Facebook groups, because a lot of people do ask for opinion, and that's great.
That's what they're for.
Yep, exactly. And the problem is you get 1,500 different opinions. So I don't know if you're any further ahead than you were before. Even if you were asking something simple like, what's the best plumber that you've used?
Yeah.
Well, again, 15 different responses. So it's like, well, I don't know.
Interesting. I always love that because when you see it, like sometimes people will say something and I won't agree at all, right? I'll be like, oh, that's a bad, but I don't say anything because to them, that was a really great, whatever they recommended was great. So rather than saying, I don't like people that come on and go, oh, no, that's wrong. I would rather just say what your opinion is. Like, oh, I have a great plumber. Here he is. Rather than saying this guy was awful.
Because the problem that I sort of have with that is that I don't know the person who's saying that. So what kind of person are they? Are they a person that's like super easygoing? Are they really like maybe they're type A personality and therefore they're really specific on how things are done? Like, I don't know the context of where it's coming from. So I would rather ask someone that I know rather than kind of put it out into the abyss. But that's just me.
Yeah. So I was up north. So I still, I'm still Elon. Where the hell is my Starlink dish? Because my internet.
He's making a ton of money.
He's going to hit 300 billion. He's going to be the richest person in the world. 300 billion.
Well, he is the richest person in the world right now.
Okay. And he can't send me my little I put my application in back in April. And he said, Elon, if you're listening to me, he said, I
don't think Elon's listening.
He said, the little thing said, well, I'm just saying it's he because it's his company. Late summer, early fall. Isn't it early fall now? Like, isn't it beyond early fall? Shouldn't I have my damn disc?
Come on, Starlink.
So, so anyway, so I get home and so I don't watch, I don't stream, I don't do any of that up there because I'm on my cell data and it's already really expensive. And, so I have to use it obviously for work purposes, not for watching Netflix and stuff like that. So when I'm here still, I download stuff and watch on my phone, but, stuff comes out all the time. So I'm very excited because when I get here, I'm like, oh, streaming. What should I watch? Right. So I'm flipping through and then I see Goop has a new Sex, Love, and Goop. You know who Goop is? Gwyneth Paltrow. Talked about her before. I talk about how she's like lives in La La Land, right? And recommends like, $5,000 jackets for your spring wardrobe, but it's okay. It's her brand. It's her aspirational brand and people like her. She's very woo-woo now. And, but she's got a successful company. So anyways, so I watched her other series that was on Netflix last year or whatever, and it was okay. And this was Sex, Love, and Goop. And I'm like, all right, let me put it on. It's only 6 episodes, 30 minutes. I'm in.
Perfect. It's like a long movie, 3 hours.
Yeah. And I couldn't sleep at all. That was I have those nights a lot. So I just didn't sleep, but I just watched it. And it's about essentially intimacy and all these different things. And there was all these sexologists, coaches, and one of them was first you do a test on, what kind of sexual being are you? And then she puts you in these groups. But this is the interesting part about it. Yeah, there's lots of information and stuff, but there are all these couples who volunteer to go through this stuff.
Okay.
On camera.
Okay.
So there's like 2 couples that are married, and then there's 2 gay couples, and then 1 older couple. It's not that old. They were like in their 60s. I thought they should be like, does that mean you can't, does everyone stop having sex in their 80s? I don't know.
I don't know.
We're not there
yet. I hope not.
But what was interesting is there was like, one was, I think it's called Body Work, and they actually get naked on the table, and the sexologist or whatever what her title is, helps you get through what you can't get through. So, and it's filmed and her partner's watching. I just found it fascinating because I was like, like, what's your mom think? What's your kids think? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know what to say to that.
Like, it was interesting. Like the information was interesting, but like there was the couple, and then like they had different personality types. It's called go to that you can do the test for free. It's called Miss Jaya, MISJIYA, I think.com. And there's a little test that tells you what kind of, what kind of person you are. And she was kink. She liked kink, even though she looked very straight. And he liked the typical guy. I can't remember what it's called, where it's just like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of guy.
Okay.
So anyway, so they're very polar opposites. And this girl's job was to get them together on the same thing. So they tried all this stuff. So they're like they're pulling out toys and claws and ties and all this stuff. And like at one point he's like naked in there on the table, and she's doing this touch thing, and he's like crying, and he's a big guy. And I'm like, whoa, like good for them that they have the guts. Not me. I don't want you. I would do it, but I wouldn't want to be
not on camera.
So it's just fascinating. So, for me, listen, if you need that information, I think it's probably a good show. It is a good show. You learn a lot. Sure, I learned some things. But what was more fascinating to me was not the content. What was fascinating to me was the people that, like took off their clothes and like, or there was one point where, I don't know, did you watch the first Goop, the first season?
Yes.
She had that Betty person who does those groups for women. So this girl worked with the two, the gay couple girls, and they were sitting. Now you didn't see, but they were naked. We saw that part, and they had mirrors in front of them, legs spread, and they were talking about their body, right? And I was just like fascinated because you're sitting there with that person, with the mirrors, with your teacher, sexologist, whatever. That's one thing to get over in my head, right? The other is there's cameramen there or women, right? Like filming. And I was like fascinated because I was like, could I do that? No, I couldn't. And I think I'm a fairly liberal, fluent person. Like I can pretty much try anything. I don't have hangups. Yeah. I have a hang up with somebody, a camera person. So, like, could you, Stacy, could you do that? Like, okay, two questions. Could you do the singular work, which is the body work where she works on you to help you through what you can't do? And, or could you do the couple thing and do it with your husband?
Okay, well, first of all, definitely not with cameras. I think I would be open-minded. Yeah. I would need to, I think I could get there. Initially, I was going to say probably not. I'm not that person.
Right.
But I think I could probably get there if.
Yeah, I think listen, make sure everyone understands. I think it's very useful and helpful therapy for a lot of
healthy.
people. And absolutely. They went and like everyone on that show, the couples, if it's legit, it all benefited, and they talked about how it totally transformed their relationships and stuff. Fantastic. Completely agree. Good for you. And I could do that. That's not a problem. I just couldn't do the camera thing. I think it takes somebody really special to say,
that's a different level.
Just film us at the same time.
But I mean, could you go on to a reality show knowing you are being filmed the whole time and potentially emotional situations? Would you do that?
I could do that.
Right. So it's not the camera, it's the camera plus intimacy together.
Well, yeah, I just think it's absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I agree. But I think it's interesting though, because if you think about, 20 years ago, how many people would they have been able to get knowing that this was going to be publicized? But now people are a lot more comfortable on camera. We're constantly, cameras all over.
It wouldn't have been allowed on TV, first of all, 20 years
right ago. That is very true.
And like I said, I completely support what was going on. Like, I think it was very valid and useful. I mean, if anyone is interested in that, go watch it, because it really is interesting. So there's nothing wrong with the show. I enjoyed it. I liked watching it. I just found it fascinating.
Yeah.
Like if for example, we always say, and well, I always say when I'm trying to get, when we're doing speaking training, especially when we do One Red, and I'm trying to get women to tell their stories, right? And I always say the same thing. If you can tell your story, as hard as it is, because everyone has a shit story to tell. So if they can tell their story and really truly help one person, it's worth getting on that stage. So maybe these couples are like, if we can help one person, one couple get through, then it's worth it. And I think that's fantastic. I don't think at this point, maybe a change.
Yeah, it's hard to know until you're kind of in that situation, but I think that's a whole other level. I mean, we talk about confidence on camera and confidence. That's
confident.
That's a whole other conversation. But again, I can't picture, because there's so many steps that I would need to go through before I even got to that point, like different sessions and one-on-one. But if you're a regular and you're very, very again, moving through that process, and that last part of that process is, would you mind being on camera so that we could show this to other people?
Well, it's interesting, because I don't know what the pre-game was, but none of them had done any of that stuff before.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
They knew what they were getting into in terms of, because I'm sure it was all vetted, right? The older couple, she was very timid, understandable, right? So she obviously wouldn't take her clothes off. But some of the stuff, you could tell she's a little uncomfortable doing, like crawling on her hands and knees and stuff.
Interesting.
But I mean, I think it's, like I said, like interesting to watch twofold. One is to the information, and then watch. And then I think a lot of questions come up, which are interesting for you, which is, could I do it? If I knew that my marriage was in trouble and this is 100% would save it, would I do it?
I don't know the answer to that. Honestly, I don't know if I can answer that, because
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to be in the situation. Yeah, it's just interesting. So I gave Gwyneth Paltrow a lot of press, even though she doesn't need it. She's like mega rich now from Goop. Goop's doing really, really well.
Crazy.
I do like, once in a while I look at her blog, just because mainly just to laugh, because some of the stuff is outrageous. Like she's got like a $5,000 vibrator for sale on her site.
Oh, good.
That's gold plated, because
of course
everybody needs a gold plated vibrator.
Obviously. Goes without saying.
Or, like I still remember her spring, like it was a spring collection or something a couple years back. I think I talked about it on Hot Topics once, and it was like thousands and thousands, like ridiculous, like, $15,000 for like one outfit or something. And like, this is your essentials for spring. And I kept thinking, wow, like I could pay my mortgage for a couple months on that. And I think, it's kind of like, there's a difference between Oprah's favorite things where they're actually affordable, where like, here's a $39, whatever sweater or something. And then there's Gwyneth's, which is like, here is a, $4,800 Ralph Lauren custom, whatever. It's a must-have for spring, right?
Well, her audience is obviously different than ours.
Totally.
And that's cool. And it's super cool. Luxury. So again, and
it's great, because what I like was you can take ideas if you really like it. And then, as we all know, just, grab the image, put it into Google Images, and find the knockoffs that are at your price point, right?
Who would know? No one would know.
Who would know? Nobody will know.
But it's interesting, though, because when you think about the super luxurious, right? Like, that's where you're going to go. You're going to look, you're going to see, potentially dream. Yeah. And that's okay. I think that's good. I love looking at that stuff. I dream in technology world.
Yes.
I was looking at a platform I just found this morning. And I look and I was like, ooh, this looks cool. And I was like, oh, and then I went $9,000 for one license. Maybe not. Yeah. Because there are, and not because, if I thought it was worthwhile, then that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But it didn't do anything different. It was very positioned very well, but it didn't do anything different than the other platforms that we have that are much, much, much less. So interesting.
Great. So now I was watching Goop. What have you been doing?
Well, I've been looking at new things on social media. So speaking of social media, one of the things that I noticed recently that Instagram had made an update that you can now schedule your lives.
Right. That's
so great. Is that interesting to you?
Not really. I gotta be honest. To me, live is live. So do I have to schedule a live? I mean,
but even if you can, so is it a big deal that Instagram came out with this scheduling a live?
Not for me.
Right. So like, I'm finding it fascinating that if you go to different social media sites and different like social media, not the platforms, but like different blogs, and people are blogging about it, are like, and they are like, wow, like, holy cow, like this is amazing. Like you can now schedule your lives like up to like 2 months in advance. Holy cow, like this is and I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, like who's gonna know? Who's gonna know?
Well, the difference is you can do it, but I think the difference is that I can schedule my lives on Facebook. I can schedule my lives on LinkedIn. I can schedule my lives, through third-party software. I can schedule my lives going on YouTube. Yeah. So I think what I was fascinated by this particular update is that it didn't wow me.
No.
And I'm always wowed. I'm always excited when new things come out on different social media platforms. But this one was kind of like, hey, you got to up your game. If you're just going to schedule a live, that's really no big deal.
Yeah. Well, it also, I would say, Stacy, it takes a lot to wow us.
True. But if you're going to do something, so this is where I found it really interesting that there's all these different social media platforms, and we do compare them. And I'm obviously, I always look what's new, what's changed, what's updated. Always looking, because I have to keep
you have to keep Gia
updated. Yeah. So it's always the newest and the latest and greatest, which is awesome. I love it. I love doing it. I love updating. I love seeing what's new. I guess putting out a feature that every other social media platform has isn't really news.
No.
To me, if you're doing something completely different and unique that no other platform has, that's just playing catch up.
Well, given that Facebook owns you, of course you're going to be able to schedule lives. It's not like a big deal. Somebody just went, oh, well, we do it here. And since we're the same company, we should do it over there too.
Yeah. But even like I said, I told you can schedule lives on Instagram. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to say, like, I'm in my brain, I'm like, what benefit? Because I'm always looking at, so scheduling lives is a feature for those of you in Sales Class 101. Scheduling a live is a feature. So think about it this way. I can schedule live, which means what's the benefit?
That people know you're going live.
So do you think they're going to put it in the calendar and go, oh my God, Stacy's going live on March the 4th. I better lock that in.
Obviously. Everyone will.
So for me, it's always like whenever I see any of these new things, I always split the two, right? Because Stacy and I in technology world, we are blinded by shiny objects. We are. Yeah. But so we're all like, ooh, but we have to go, okay, that's the feature. But how are we actually going to use it? What's it going to do for us? Like it's kind of like when we watch the Apple launches, right? We like everything.
I want
you name it. You change the color of the desktop, we're in. But again, you have to say, do we need it? No. If it's a nice to have because it's pretty or it's a great feature because it's cute or whatever, cool. But is it going to benefit us? If it's not going to benefit you, it's not like, oh my God, this is amazing. Now there'll be people that argue with you, right, Stacy?
Well, like I said, a lot of the blogs, again, you can schedule it so that it comes up on people's feeds that they can schedule, kind of like Facebook. When you go live, you can click get reminder. People can know because we don't assume that people know when you're going live, and they can't always just drop everything because you're going live. Yep. I get that. So you can let people know. So I see advantages to it. Absolutely. I have no issue with the feature being there because I think it's a great feature to have.
Absolutely. Great.
And just because a social media platform has a feature doesn't mean you have to use it.
No.
And the only other thing is that I've been working on our TikTok challenge. So I'm really excited about that. So looking at different, just kind of figuring it out. So we have a TikTok challenge starting on December the 1st. And, I use the platform. I watch the platform. I've done videos myself. So just trying to figure out sort of for somebody who's just getting started on that particular platform, what would that look like day 1, day 2, day 3? And then, of course, finding different videos that we want to do, because that's the other piece. Like, just again, going back to just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
And I think that's really important. And that's the difference with what we're doing with the TikTok challenge. We're starting with you guys. So anyone that does it with us, we're not going to pre-do a bunch of videos or anything on our side because we don't have anything up really. We've tested, but we haven't done anything much. But most will walk you through it, which we will walk you through the mechanics of it, right? This is what you do. The biggest step that most people miss is, what are you going to do on the channel?
Right. And we're going to strategize that with you and see our process and the decisions that we're making on what makes sense for us and our brand, and what we want to put out there on TikTok. So I literally was last night, like, I'm looking at videos differently. It's like, would I want to do that video? Would I want to do something similar? Would I want to use this sound? What could we do?
Yeah.
So I was sending Fay last night. I was like, well, this would be a good one, but this wouldn't. And here's why. This is what I'm thinking, because we have to.
What you like is what what you'll probably do, like, because we always say, I love the TikTok that go, who's going to know? No one's going to know. Like, we say it all the time because we like the video. So you have to like find what your vibe is. What do you like? And what does your audience like? But more important than your audience is, what do you like? Because you can tell the ones that are forced. I hate the ones. So again, I've said this before, but the ones that are people that are a little bit older, not the teenagers, right? That are trying to do, the point or whatever, and they're all off. Like, they're not like it's supposed to look. And like, if you don't do that right, don't do it, because it's just not cool.
Well, so if you're going to do something, and that's why I want to find ones that, or find ways to use TikTok because there's so much to that particular platform. And that's what got me started thinking about Instagram, and then, different platforms that take off, like Twitter took off stories. They took off audio, but then they re-added it again. And now they're re-adding it. They're redoing their audio, but they're showcasing it differently, which I think is really smart. So good for them for sort of keeping it, but they realized that they needed to kind of rejig it a little bit. So
it's interesting. I think the people that have to rejig most is Facebook. Like, I don't know why they're not rejigging.
I don't know. It's getting boring. That's okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good week. We will see you. We will be letting you know how to sign up for our 5-day challenge soon. We're getting that ready. So we will see you next week right here.
Bye. Thanks for joining us in the city.
If you're ready to make a lasting impression on a global scale, you can learn more at joingia.com. That's joingia.com.
So go there now, because the world is waiting for you.